All right, welcome back, everybody, to the second of the sort of new generation of Movie Howl, where Ryan, am joined by my vivacious co-host Joe, and this time we are going to be talking about Fallout, which I'm excited about because we watched that show independently and haven't really talked about it. But I think we have different opinions of it. I think both of us are casual dabblers in the game, but not like super into it. We don't really follow it. I mean, is that right? Like New Vegas and 4, and I technically own Fallout 76, but I don't play it. I've heard it's developed into like a whole new thing since the show came out. It kind of revived interest in it. And what's fun about that to me is there's apparently, because it's all online, so the people you meet are supposed to be real people in the game. What I've been reading is that there are a lot of new people just joining, and then the people who got it when it first came out and never left. So there's like these Masaroshi types who know everything and can do everything. They're like, oh, I will guide you, or I will obliterate you.
I mean, sure.
That's just because you're here now. But yeah, I would just want to get into it, man.
Yeah, I think I played Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and that's about it. Enjoyed the game.
They didn't catch my attention until they got on PS3. I know the older ones were like on, I think, PC back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, once PS3 era hit, it's like, oh, what are these? Like the commercials for New Vegas, I remember being big back in the mid-aughts.
New Vegas came after Fallout 3, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
I never actually played New Vegas, so I got no frame of reference for that one. But yeah, this is a full series review. There's a lot to talk about with this. One of our favorite YouTubers has already done his review on this, The Drinker, and I both agree and disagree with some of the things that he had said when I really took a more critical eye to this. But overall, I think my opinion of it is generally a mixed bag. I think it is one of the best representations of an IP that went from video game format into media like this. I think the decision not to be a movie and to be a series, because we have all the streaming services now, I think is a really good way to go about it. And I really do think that some of the people, at least, who worked on this project were fans of the IP. And you can tell that by watching it. There are things in it that are super well done that I really, really enjoy. There's just an almost subtle, yet not, once I really paid attention, additive of the message, which is just this series of woke, basically anti-man, is really what I'm going to label this. As far as when you want to say, well, it's really, I think, an anti-male skew to this show, which is what I had a real problem with. But other than that, and there's going to be plenty of examples, we'll get into a lot of it. But other than that, it was so well done. And when I first watched it, it really didn't hit me some of the stuff that I paid attention to, played much more close attention to in the rewatching of it so that we could do this. Took a lot of notes, but in the very beginning of this show, and spoiler-wise, we're just going to talk about this, right? So spoilers abound. I don't want to go but there's just going to be things we're going to talk about, right? So we're just saying that. All right, spoilers. Halligans, you've been warned. So it is what it is. The introduction of this, I love the introduction of the character of Cooper, who ends up playing the Ghoul in the actual Fallout universe aspect of this, but they start it with a flashback with him and just kind of where he's at in this movie career, where he's not really like a movie star. He's playing a kid's birthday party and pictures, and it was the way they started that was intense, and it really, really set the tone for what this show turned out to be.
Definitely. The music, the ambiance of it that they said was perfect. Like the house that they chose was perfect. The Philco, whatever those TVs are called, I forget exactly. Like it's a very specific brand and model that's really hard to find now. You can get them, but like having the Futuras, I think they're called, whatever they are. think they're called Future. I think that's the actual model of the TV. Like not in there, it's like Radiation King or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Like the real life one, because that really is a model of TV minus the holotape player. Like it was just so cool. And they put in the right mix of stuff during that scene, like the weatherman being like, "Wow, why do I care about the weather? We might not even be here." And then they cut it off. And there's things on the radio that are playing while they're just getting the cake ready for this kid's birthday party. And they're like, "Why is he doing a birthday party?" And they're hinting that there's something wrong with his marriage and his daughter's there. And it's so dramatic and tense.
Mm-hmm.
The way that scene goes, I couldn't imagine them doing it better. Like
Yeah,
really, I don't know what I would
well
change. Yeah, to do that. Yeah, it's kind of perfect, especially with the music and everything too, because the music really helps set the vibe of the games. The music. I mean, everybody knows this, but the Fallout world. There are a few differences. Like they kind of never move past the baby boomer generation. What I've read in some of the lore is that they never invented the semiconductor. So most things are still tube based.
Okay.
That's why you still have like these old school black and white TVs and things like that. That's why the Pip-Boy is so big and has the big green CRT. But they've like really gone in on nuclear, kind of the opposite of us. Like we have the solution for a lot of the world's pollution right now, and that's nuclear power.
They do.
Like that is a small amount of it's a small amount of land to generate a huge amount of power versus other renewable energy, but we don't use it. And it kills far fewer people than fossil fuels. And getting off my soapbox. In this universe, they've gone way in on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's in like cars and all this other stuff, and like the core that goes in the back of the power armor.
Right.
That's like a nuclear battery. It's just the way they did it was really good, and the details that they got, the way the shops look, people talking about like trading in caps and things like that. Just everything about the look was correct.
Mm-hmm.
Even down to some of the mechanics of it. Like it was like what? Like when the dog is injured and they give the dog a stim pack and then the dog jumps up.
Yep.
It's like I don't have any problem with that. That's what happens in the game.
Yep, absolutely.
Blame the game for that. Like they actually went in on that and just did, okay, this is what happens.
I absolutely love how they did that. And they don't explain it. You don't need to explain it. It's from a video game. That's how that works. If you played any video games, okay, Fallout with Fallout Stim Pack, with any other game, it's whatever the healing mechanic is. Who cares? I don't care what it is. It's fine. That's what it's supposed to be. So the introduction to Cooper, who's the main character, also known in the setting of the world that we know of Fallout, the real-time setting, not the flashback setting, is the Ghoul. But then you've got the introduction of Lucy, another main character in this, and the introduction of Vaults. And I really liked how her introduction was handled. She is this very plucky, but yet naive person who is smart and capable, and they show why that is. They give some background to it, so you're not just looking at this person without any idea of later on in the show, well, why do they know how to do that? How come they know this or that? And there was plenty that she didn't know in the show. This was not a case where, like with a lot of things, just the female heroine, what do you want to call it nowadays, where it's just can do no wrong. I'm just the best at everything always. And that's not what it is in this show. And I really enjoyed that. Yet at the same time, from one of the early outsets of this, they really started to lean into men just being shitty. Just there's like, if I were to ask you in this or anybody who has seen this, can you name one good man in this entire series?
Yeah, the cousin that she messes around with, who's the gatekeeper.
Right, the cousin who wants to have sex with his cousin.
Hey, and that's something that she talks about at first too. Like he's like, no, I can't get the door to open when we're supposed to have the wedding. And she's like, no, cousin stuff is fine, but we need to be able to have kids.
He's not a good man. He's not strong. He's not masculine. He's not at all that. He gets fired and cries. That's his responsibility. Have you ever been fired from a job and cried? You ever been told no and cried since you were an adult male person?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I've never been gatekeeper.
Never. You had not ever. I mean, that's fair. That's a fair point.
It's a big job.
In the very
he's basically the Vault Heimdall. It's a big job.
Ooh. A little, only not as cool. Actually, I actually like Idris Elba. This other guy, I don't know. So in the very beginning of this, Lucy is all there. This vault, and you find out why later on in the show. But this vault is very about marriage and family, and I liked that. But the problem is there's no good, strong, capable men who are actually good husbands and good masculine father figures to balance that out. The women in it are the ones who are strong and capable and have all the answers. All of the men involved, the council, the two guys on the council are worthless. They know nothing, they do nothing, and there's just Lucy when she goes to meet somebody from another vault. There's going to be an arranged marriage thing. This is what her dad went through, and they have a conversation about it and how he felt about it. And obviously, he had met her mother, and she has these awesome memories of her mother and her father, who's been a good man her whole life. He's the overseer of the vault, which you either know the games or you don't. You either understand it or you don't. So is what it is. But one of the other characters, her blonde friend, sees the guy who comes out who she is going to marry and is immediately like struck by him with her husband standing right there. This weak, pathetic guy who like has got nothing, and she's already smitten with him. It just played like that for the entire series. And that was just one of the very first things that started. And it really bothered me how much this show pushed the idea that men equals evil or bad or weak, women good, strong, independent, whatever. Yet at the same time, like I just said with Lucy, she wasn't like Rey or Captain Marvel, where she just did it because she could do it. I believe in myself, so now I can do better. No, she got her ass kicked. She had to learn. She had to learn hard lessons about the different in the environment of Fallout, the topside world outside of a vault, and how real that is. And there was so much that they got right with the world of Fallout. The things that I took great exception to in this were the things that didn't really involve that, where they tried to shoehorn in other concepts. And that was the kind of thing that bothered me a lot about this. Whereas the actual world of Fallout and some of the characters in it, you've got Maximus, who's with, and I keep wanting to say the Enclave, and I know it's not. I know it's the Brotherhood. So I'm going to have to make sure to correct myself. But Maximus with the Brotherhood and how that storyline played out, and I really enjoyed it. He could be considered a good man and a strong masculine man in this, but he would be the only one. And
his character is one that really confused me because he seems to be. They show him as a kid having a flashback 8 times of him getting out of like the milk vending machine, which is also something from the games. I thought that was kind of cool. A lot of that stuff really was from the games, but they show him getting out of that after the nuclear blast that destroys the NCR, basically. They show him getting out of that and seeing the guy in the power armor, and like that's his inspiration. He wants to be one to help him do something good with his life. But I just don't know what they were doing with it, because he also seems kind of weak and weaselly a little bit. Like he has these moments where he's with one of the elders after whatever the other initiate or whatever the rank is, like the razor and the boot thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, did some people think that you did that? Like, do you have anything else to say? And he's like, thank you for giving my life purpose and blah, blah, blah. And for whatever reason, like, I don't even understand that. Like, I don't know what the purpose of that was or what that exchange meant to that elder. Why they're like, okay, you're like the low man on the totem pole. Like, you're literally the one emptying the toilets. Okay, now we're going to make you a squire. Unless they just knew that they were giving him to the shittiest knight, Titus. It turned out to be just terrible.
It's pretty shitty. And not even a good night. If he I'm sorry, if I'm in that game and I got power armor, if I can't take out Yagua, the mutated bear thing, I don't deserve my power armor. Get out of here.
Yeah, he's just like, but then he goes to the ceremony and they brand him and he doesn't, he's tough. I mean, it's something they show in like John Wick. They do that kind of thing. He doesn't make much noise, or if any noise at all, he doesn't accept something to bite on. In some of the Assassin's Creed games, they do the same thing to like show this is a strong character or to show their like determination or dedication. But then, he just seems so unsure and weaselly. And then there's the scene where she's like, "You want to have sex?" Because there's nothing else going on, and she's just used to being able to like hook up with her cousins and stuff in this vault apparently. And he like doesn't understand what sex is. Like,
Yeah,
he
that
doesn't
scene,
understand the mechanics of how it's supposed to work.
right?
But
I-
he is
Ooh.
ultimately kind of a good person. Like he
Mm-hmm.
wants to do the right thing. He wants to do the good thing, and he does have a couple of instincts that are good. But his stuff seems so out of place because he seems so weird and so unsure of himself. And then later on, there's the scene where he's got his power armor put up, and those guys come from that little like market or whatever, and they kick the shit out of him. And he's laying there, and then he just like gets up and he grabs like a wrench and he grabs whatever else, and he just like goes back to fight him again. Like that was a cool, almost like Captain America moment. Like, no, I'm getting back up. I'm not staying down.
Yeah, there was a part about that specific scene that I really didn't understand, and that was as part of that scene, his power armor's hanging up. He is not in it. It is off, and yet it reaches out of its own volition somehow, grabs one of those raiders. We can just call them raiders because that's basically what they would be in the game, and which was awesome. Don't get me wrong, the visual of this was incredible. Loved it. But just grabs him by the top of his head and just crushes his head like a ripe melon. I'm gone. It was beautiful. Like graphic. It was exactly what you wanted it to be. And where as cool as that was, I'm sorry, how does that work? In what world? Like if somehow they expounded on that in some way, and this isn't a game thing at all that I've ever noticed in either of the games that I've played, but I know has been a thing in other genres or mediums, other games and things where your whatever electronic or mechanical thing you are using somehow is like bonded to you and almost has an AI mind of its own to be able to do stuff like that. Power Armor's not that. And nor was it presented like that in the show at all.
I think it was just that somehow he was able to get his arm into it enough, because I did rewatch that scene and his arm is in it.
Oh, really?
But it doesn't look like it's far enough in to do what it does.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
And it should be off, because when power armor is open, it is still. It goes into like the starfish position.
Yeah, it's in fix-it mode. Like it's ready to be worked on, to be upgraded, to be repaired, all that. So I thought that was a little odd of the why behind it.
But he has that scene, and then later on, there's another scene where he and Lucy are walking, and she sees some other people walking towards them. She's like, "Everything's okay. It's just other people. Like, it's fine." And he's like, "No." He like sees stuff, like he notices things, and he's confident, and he knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's these little moments where he's like confident and knows what's up, and then where he's very insecure.
Right. How that's contrasting to what you talk about when she offered to have sex with him, which is a point I'd like to bring up. That was something I had written down in my notes to talk about that specifically, where in general, that's not the way those roles work. In general, the guy is the one as driven by biology and testosterone to want to have sex and procreate. You got a lot of testosterone, you have that drive that generally most women don't have that same drive. It's just the way it is. And yet this is, again, I just feel as part of the message. Women, they're independent. They're the ones who want sex just as much as men. And okay, you can say that all you want. Doesn't mean it's actually what's accurate. I did like how in the very beginning of it, when their introduction to the vault, how the action ramps up and how it really gets things rolling. Mm-hmm. She meets this guy, and then all of a sudden it's so much more than that the vault is under attack and all these things are going on. I really liked how the action ramped up. I liked how that scene between her and her attacker went down, how she was smart enough to like watch him and kind of see how he's reacting to the things that are in a vault that she's used to as this is what you have when you live in a vault. But he just these little glimpses that he didn't really understand the same things. And he's
like the
water and just these different things. And she was able to pick up on that because she's a clever character. And I really have, there's not a whole lot bad I can say about her character throughout this entire thing.
The only thing I would say is she looks like an Instagram filter. I think I might have said this in person. Like her whole, like she just looks like that because her eyes are so big. She looks like one of those, like a lemur or some kind of monkey or whatever that has like these massive eyes that are like nocturnal. And it's like, it just kept the first watch through. The second time I didn't get it, but the first time it was like I feel like there's some kind of effect because they're so huge. It's like a living anime character.
Yeah. There was, man. There's so much.
But I guess we should maybe get into the plot, which essentially revolves around kind of three things.
Okay.
There's the ghoul and what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
There is Lucy and her father and Moldaver.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is, I forget what his name is in the show, Wilson, right? The scientist from the Enclave.
Oh, potentially. Yeah. Something like that.
I don't know if that was supposed to be his real name, but that's what the lady in Philly called him, was Wilson.
Okay.
I was going to say Finch, because that was his name in Person of Interest. That took me a second to think of. But he basically acted the same way. And I had to keep reminding myself, it's Enclave, not Institute. So I was like, why is he above ground? This doesn't make any sense. Oh, right. Enclave, not Institute.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not making sense. They're doing other scientific-y stuff, but he is trying to get some science-y thing, which he is smuggling in his head
Mm-hmm.
to Moldaver. Don't know why. Him escaping.
It's
is
the MacGuffin.
not-
The MacGuffin.
It's the MacGuffin, but it's not set off because he needs to get this thing to her. It's set off because they're destroying Puppy at the beginning. Like they are doing these experiments where they're training these dogs using these devices on them. And if the puppy is not suitable, they throw it in an incinerator. And he saves this puppy,
Mm-hmm.
and he makes a little home for it, and he trains it, and it's like it's a dog meat.
It's dog meat
from Fallout 4.
Yep, it's dog meat. Even the ghoul refers to him as dog meat at one point in the show.
Yeah, and somebody finds the dog. Like somebody sees the dog. That's what sets this whole thing off.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, okay, boop, got to put this thing in my head now. Like insert it in my brain, basically, and then get to this person. And we don't really know why. And then Lucy is in an arranged marriage because there's not enough genetic diversity in her vault. So they have an exchange of people every so often.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, the blonde, I forget her name, but that's how she got her husband. Like she came from the other vault. It was assigned to a guy named Bert, I think.
Not for long.
Well, not for terribly long. And she makes like a funny comment about Bert, like, oh, they have a shared wedding dress, which I thought was cool. Like everybody who's worn it signs their name. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And Lucy's like, oh, it's a little tight. And she's like, that's okay. When I got married, the dress got off faster than Bert did. Which, again, men bad, maybe, or make fun of men, whatever you want to say. But it's hard for me to believe that they opened the vault door and saw all those people there, the tattoos and the scars and things like that, and weren't immediately suspicious. And it's true that the vaults are not in contact that much. Like the overseers communicate through the terminals, but they don't see each other. But you would still, I mean, the chick and Bert just got married a couple years before, maybe. I mean, she's pregnant, so it couldn't have been that long. You would just think they'd be like, huh, I was here last time. I don't recognize any of you. What is going on? Or that one of them, their Pip Boy, would be like, oh, there's a lot of these are raiders. Like, close that thing back. You trying to get us all killed?
I mean,
right? Because that's how they.
Like later on in the show. Okay, so the scene he's talking about, it turns out that this marriage thing, it's raiders somehow impersonating. How they knew it was going to happen, how they knew to do that. We have to assume that it's Moldaver, who's like the mastermind of all that, because she is like she's the great communist leader of this show. Like, period. That's like what it is.
Yeah.
And so somehow she masterminded that. But the thing that I find odd is that when this attack goes down, it's just like regular vault dwellers who they portray in the show as scientists who are going to be running these vaults. And they're the ones who are, going to be saving society. They're going to be saving humanity by living, getting past, all the fallout of all the radiation, everything that goes, that goes south on the top side. Yet very shortly, a couple episodes in, when the new overseer decides to send people back to the other vault so that the other vault can also be repopulated, there's all of a sudden a security force that wasn't anywhere to be seen when the attack happened. I'm sorry, did the writers not think that we saw the first few episodes? Do they not think that we could remember a couple hours of what we just saw before? That it's
all of a sudden they have a prison, they have guards, they have like specific uniforms for that. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's not something that just happens, or at least it's not something that you can just have happen without having some sort of discussion about it that is for us as the audience to hear. Otherwise, it's just assumed that they were around the whole time, yet during this raider attack, you didn't see any of them. And you just saw vault dwellers getting slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that really, really kind of just one of many things that really kind of upset me in this. Now, and I'm just going to bring this up because I'm a dog person, and I think about things like this, but you mentioned the dog and the scientist and the puppies and the whole situation, as was in the newest of the John Wick movies with Halle Berry, or that was John Wick 3, maybe not John Wick 4, I don't know, whatever. But her dogs, Hollywood has a new obsession with Belgian Malinois, which was the kind of dog that is in this movie. They're great dogs. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure. But the problem that I have with Hollywood latching onto something like that, doesn't matter what kind of dog they decide to latch onto, but as soon as they do it, people want to get that dog. Normal people, listen, anybody out there who happens to watch or listen to this, do not go get a Belgian Malinois. You are not a police force. You are not a military unit. That's what those dogs are for. They have amounts of energy you cannot control. They require an amount of effort that we don't have to give. Do not go get those dogs. And that's one of the things that really bothers me, because that means people are going to go out and get them. They're not going to be able to handle them. Those dogs are going to be a problem. They're going to give them up for adoption, and they're going to get euthanized and killed, and they shouldn't, because they're going to be really expensive dogs.
Yeah, or they're going to like run amok, and they're going to get banned by HOAs and stuff like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, that is a very problematic dog if it is not hyper trained, like super hyper trained. I'm trying to go through training right now with my dog, who looks like one of those dogs, but she's just a German Shepherd Greyhound mix. So she's this slender German Shepherd looking dog, which is kind of what they look like. And she's super athletic,
smart, and fast as shit.
Yeah, there you go. And hard-headed, smart, hard-headed, and fast as crap. But like, I see that, and it really bothers me that Hollywood does, like, they do that because it's what's popular right now, I guess. It's what's in. But that just prompts people to do it. Don't do that. Don't go out and get one of those dogs. All right. That was my soapbox on the dog. I had to say it.
But yeah, so that's their whole ruse to get in, is this wedding somehow, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, except that Moldaver presumably has been there for a while, or has been using a Pip Boy or something to be in communication with the other overseer. And we do find out later that she was using a Pip Boy that previously belonged to one of the Vault 33 residents to access the door, to access the computer system, stuff like that. So her father, who is seemingly a good man and like a strong, I mean, he's the only like good patriarchal figure that you see right away. Like when she's being attacked, when she's almost killed, he wrecks her fake husband.
Oh my God, that was great. Drowns his ass in a pickle bucket. It was fantastic. It is. He's like this good guy, and that is the way it seemed. And eventually you just knew the other shoe was going to drop, and it did later on. But we'll get to that point.
But yeah, she has this whole thing where she's like, choose between them or your daughter. There's a bomb, and there's some of the other residents there in this hallway, which I didn't really understand. Like on the second watch, I really didn't understand, because nobody dies in this scene.
Yep.
And I think maybe that's Moldaver, like the first thing of her showing, like, I'm not really that bad. Like, I just massacred a whole bunch of people.
Right.
Like, do what you do, run. And so they all get up and run. Bomb blows up. Lucy's safe because McClane put her in the
closet,
broom closet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Moldaver's like, peace. I don't know. See you on the surface. I don't. It doesn't make any sense. There's so much more that didn't make sense. There's so much that's so good, like the ghoul, the introduction to the ghoul. They dig him up. He's just buried somewhere, and you see that Coop was
Bubba digs him up from Forrest Gump.
Bubba does dig him up for one last job.
One last job. Know what they say about one last job? It means your heart's not in it.
It was so good. It was so like they put down the chicken. They're like, oh, ghouls can't, feral ghoul can't abide a chicken. Like walks over to it and picks it up, and they're like, we shoot him, because he's like talking.
Yeah,
he's holding the chicken.
Oh my God. So one thing that I thought was odd. I don't know if I disliked the choice of this, but when you played, we'll go with Fallout 4. You ever have a problem telling the difference between a feral ghoul and a non-feral ghoul?
No. The feral ones are the ones that run at you, pinwheeling their arms.
Right. It's like 28 Days Later, zombies or something. Yeah. Like they're just coming at you. There is no question. But I really did like some of the decisions they made in this, like when the ghoul or Cooper meets up with that other ghoul who he knew.
His old friend, yeah.
But he knew what was happening. Like they did something in this. They made some decisions in this that they changed it. They tweaked it a little bit from the games for the screenplay for this show. And some of those decisions I really liked. The fact that he has to take whatever, and they don't say what substance it is. And there's so many in Fallout. There's Buff Out and Addictol and all these different drugs that you can take. But he's taking this inhaler style thing. But apparently that's what keeps you from becoming a feral ghoul. And so there was a scene between him and this other guy and Lucy. And I thought that was really well done. Another thing that they changed from the game is the fact that, okay, we all know in a video game, you as one person cannot hold all the equipment that you're allowed to carry in a game, but you do anyways. In this, the knights in the power armor have a squire. And the squire carries this duffel bag that's bigger than they are, full of all the knight's shit. That was great. I absolutely loved how they added that in. I thought it made a lot of sense for the world that we were watching, and it really lended to the story of what we were involved in this show. Really enjoyed that. And for all the things in this that I didn't like, which there's some other ideas and things in here that, you know, we can get into that I didn't. I really enjoyed some of the decisions that were made in here. And it partly, like I said in the beginning, some of the decisions that are made in here, you can tell that this was made by people who enjoyed the IP, who really wanted to bring it to life in a way that did it right. You know, that kind of honored all the work and effort that these game developers put in when they put out a Fallout game. Because if the first Fallout game you ever played was Fallout 4, you're blown away. Like, there's so much to it. There's so much to do. I mean, and it's an Oblivion game, or not Oblivion, Obsidian, because they same people who make Skyrim, but that studio just crushes it. Bethesda, thank you.
The first ones might have been.
Yeah, they just crushed it with those games. And they really did a good job in this. Although I didn't understand, having played the games, I really felt like there was no good faction in this entire thing.
I was about to say that too. Yeah, that there are these different factions, but I feel like, in Fallout 4, the Minutemen are pretty clearly good. You've got Garvey or whatever who comes to find you. Like, people. Yeah, they just want to help people. Like, they are literally called to other settlements to help out with them. But in the games, part of what makes Fallout so interesting, each of the factions think they're doing the right thing. The Brotherhood, I didn't really like the way, I felt like the Brotherhood was the furthest from what they were in the games. I mean, they're a strict military type hierarchy. But in this, they were like almost mystical, more so than just in their terminology. They use a lot of like medieval terminology in the games. But in this, they've got like the incense that they're swinging around. There's just a lot of bullshit where it's like, did you do this? And what can you give to us? And they're like watching for the right kind of behavior. In the games, it's like, go on this mission. Oh, you completed that mission? Good job. Get promoted after successes. Or like,
yeah, here's some caps. Did good.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to have them personify the way they were in this. Especially, it's probably not good to mention this, but the fact that they put a trans person in.
I know you say that. Even on my second watch through, I didn't feel that.
I'm just saying. I thought it was odd to put them with the Brotherhood, because if there was a group that was going to be intolerant.
I mean, that's 100% accurate. The way they're portrayed as just douchebags and kind of dicks.
Yeah, right. Right. And that and this person is not the target of anything. Like, they're not disrespected at all. I mean, that could have been a chance to have like an actual like empowerment moment for this character, as opposed to the way they hurt themselves to avoid like active duty, which I would totally do too, because that their arm is like that big around, and they're supposed to carry like a 6 foot tall golf bag full of all this, like the giant rifle that the power armor is supposed to hold and all this stuff. Like, fuck off with that. No way.
I saw, and I got to quote this because this guy was just a goddamn boss. So some military higher up guy, I don't know, but I saw a clip of him interviewing. He's being interviewed and talked about women in the military and this and that. And he's like, why are they not in the special forces? And it's like he named a number 10 or 12 most fit women in the Marine Corps can't get through this program. And it's like, why is that? Because when you take 130 pounds and you put it on the back of a woman, they crumble like a fucking crouton. That shit is just biological. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying it to be mean. I crumble like a goddamn crouton, carry out some shit like that. But that's what you like. There are certain people who can do that. None of them are women. I'm not saying it to be mean or to be ignorant. That's just the way it is. Like, he just said it like a boss. I was like, God damn. But yeah, in that bag you're talking about, I couldn't even imagine. It was huge. Like, say, you're not kidding. When you say a 6 foot tall bag, people who haven't seen the show think maybe you're joshing. No, this humongous bag full of all the shit that you would need to carry. What, at least be 100 pounds more?
Yeah, that is meant to be carried by the power arm.
Right? It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. The fact that these squires are hucking this shit around, and when Maximus is with Knight Titus and they're in the chopper, and all of a sudden he's like, just pull over here. I want to shoot. I want to fucking shoot something. And it just,
and not pull over here and wait. Just go ahead and leave, even though we're like 35 miles away from where we're supposed to be. Yeah, it's just, they're so dumb. They're so dumb. Titus was so dumb. He's down. The bear has injured him, and he's like, hey, I am dying. Get me a stim pack. By the way, this is your fault. They're going to Blood Eagle when we get back.
Yeah,
all
you're dead.
Stuff is going to happen to you, and I'm going to make sure to tell them about it. Give me a stim pack so I don't die right now. And keep this secret.
Right? That how counterproductive that is for, I don't know, living?
It would have been much better if he was like maybe about to heal him. Like, okay, I'll stick it here, and the guy's like, make some comment. I don't know what it would be, like offhanded, like, this may not be good for you when we report this.
No, that was really dumb. And just it was the way they portrayed all the men in this show is a goddamn tragedy. Now, that doesn't mean you can't portray men as shitty. The only thing I am asking for when I bitch about something like this is portray both equally. That you can have both men and women who are equally competent for whatever reason they're competent at. You can have a masculine man who's good. You can have a woman who's evil. Like, you can have these things. Both genders can be all of these things. That's the problem that I have when I'm looking at stuff like this, is that there's this one thing. Men are all bad. Women are all good because they're. Can you name one truly evil woman in this whole show? You could potentially argue it's one of the counselors for Vault-Tec when Cooper's wife is in that meeting and they're talking about what they're going to do. But even the thing she wants to do isn't evil like the thing the men are suggesting. It's like, oh, I want to see if a robot can run a vault. Oh, okay. Where they're suggesting, oh, I want to create super mutants, and I want to do like these horrific things they want to do with. I want to see who can survive if we don't give them enough food. And
like, none of that makes any sense, because these are like, these are Fallout companies. These are like Praxo Cleaner and stuff like that. It's like, they're why do you need to know that you're making soda? Like, why do you need to create super? None of this stuff makes any sense. And your whole deal, like. And even the vault, like the whole thing of in this was so stupid. I'm starting to like this less and less. It was so good. It was so enjoyable to watch. Like, the Ghoul is great. Anytime he's on screen is awesome. I thought Wilson was good. Like the creepy way that he shows up when Lucy's sleeping and he's like, everything's evolved to kill.
Right.
Like,
and
it's all different than it used to be.
The rad roach.
Yeah.
Oh, the dog
like
is
this,
great.
like,
Love dog meat.
The stuff that is still alive has gotten better. And it's gotten better at killing other things. That's why it's still.
And it's no joke. The stuff that is like, he's just straight up, you're not going to survive out here. You better go back.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have.
And he knows about her because he knows the vaults and history and all that. He's from the Enclave, so of course he knows it. And
he knows, they hint that he knows a little bit more about her than kind of he lets on. But then shortly after that, he's dead, and you don't know anything else about it. So there were so many things that they did in this besides the anti-man aspect of this show, which is a problem in and of itself.
Well, I do. There's a horrible thing that her father is revealed to have done at the end of the show, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, they didn't do anything to set him up that character. It's like the whole thing is he did this because he's evil, because he was a manager at a company.
Yep.
what anybody who's watching this, like, would your boss murder people or nuke cities or kill their spouse or deprive their children of their future or any of these like horrific things you can think of just because they're a manager? They're like a middle manager. I mean, that's the true villain of the show is middle management. These like corrupt company.
Yeah.
But the I still say that the true evil of the show is Moldaver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I want you to go on with.
Okay. I think that's interesting because I think the true evil of the show, the way they portray it, the evil is capitalism. That's what's evil. Communism good, socialism good, capitalism bad. Because evil corporations want to do only what they can for their shareholders, and they have a one of Cooper's in a flashback. He's talking to a co-star in one of his old cowboy and Indian movies, and he said, "Do you know what fiduciary responsibility means?" Which, thanks to my current job, I do know what fiduciary responsibility means. But as he explains it, they really try to paint capitalism as a bad thing. And one of the biggest issues I have with that, and I think a lot of people are being sold this in society right now. I don't know if they understand it, but capitalism is responsible for more of the world coming out of poverty than any time previously in human history, thanks to the idea of capitalism. But one of the problems, and I'm not saying capitalism is perfect, it is not, but one of the things that you need to have in order for it to be a good thing is you need a moral people. How do you have a moral people? Generally, that revolves around religion, because even when different sects of religion, generally it's about being good, because being bad, there's a reason not to be bad. There's a reason to be good. There is a God to be feared. You should be good. And by being a good person, that's the kind of people who we would prefer to be running big companies. That doesn't mean that as a good person running a big company, you don't want to make money, but people who do that, they're not just running companies to rake in millions of dollars for themselves. Some, sure. All of our government and all of our politicians, they're terrible at that. I hate almost all of them. But for most people, they're producing jobs, giving people a chance to earn a wage, have a family, do these things that we would all like to do. Like, I think marriage, family, the perpetuation of the human species is a good thing. And being able to do that, which right now is, as we all know, extremely difficult. Thank you, current regime, that I like to say. But like, there's a lot of problems. But people being good is necessary for a society to work well in the way that capitalism wants to allow it. Capitalism equals freedom. But the problem with freedom is there's going to be bad people. It's like the freedom to have guns. Well, you have freedom to have guns, but the problem with freedom is there's going to be bad people who get their hands on them. So you need good people to stand up against the bad. And this show perpetuates the idea that capitalism is just evil. It's across the board evil. It's not evil. People are evil, which is why we need people to be good if they're going to do these things. And like you mentioned, when we talked about that boardroom scene, the things that they are putting forth are like, who are you people to suggest this stuff? What? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, there's no reason to be doing a lot of things.
Nope.
That's an aspect of the story that didn't seem to jive with the rest of it. It didn't really make sense. It's like they just needed some big reveal for Cooper to motivate him, because if you are, it's like Facebook. I have a friend who's like a complete tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist kind of guy. It's like they're selling your information. And I told him one time, it's like, they're not selling your information, or at least not the information that matters, because that's what they make money off. Facebook makes money by selling ads targeted to you because they know about you. They're not going to teach other people about you. They want other people to them to advertise to you. You can very specifically target people on Facebook for ads based on their interests, which in and of itself is not a bad thing. Because I turned on a bunch of ad blockers and things like that. So I was basically anonymous. And the ads that I got were like single Chinese mail order brides over 50. It was like all lowest common denominator stuff. Like ads that they just blanket the internet with.
Over 50, you say?
Yeah. And if you turn all that stuff back off and let it actually target you. And it's like, hey, did you play Spider-Man 2 yet? Or like, hey, here's this new cooler from Noctua, or here's this other thing you might be interested in, or Asus just released a new version of the Zen phone. It's like stuff you might actually care about. Like, it's still creepy that they know so much, but
it's exactly what they talked about in Captain America and Winter Soldier. The algorithm knows. Yeah. They know you better. They know your voting patterns. They know all of it. They know what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do. Based on all, they plug all the information into it, and it figures it out. And that's the kind of stuff that's actually happening.
Yeah, it's in their interest to keep that information secure so that they can help cater things to you. They keep you on their platform, and they also make the people trying to use that platform to advertise to you happy as well. They're not going to just be like, hey, what if we just released all this stuff to the public unencrypted and just enjoyed the chaos? Wouldn't that be great for our shareholders? Whereas in this, they're like, hey, we make money off of paranoia. We make money selling because people are paranoid about this potential war that might. So how about we make sure the war happens and we stop? That doesn't make any sense. You want there to be no war, but you want there always to be the threat. You never want it to happen. You would do they would have their own like secret service, like their own like CIA, MI6, specifically to sabotage any attempts to start the war because they would want to keep it going.
But keep the threat there. That's actually, I think that's a very good point. I think you're 100% right with that. And in any of the Fallout games, I checked this with another friend of mine who has played all the Fallout games, and I said to him, I don't remember this in the games, but let's just to clue me back in. Vault-Tec didn't drop the bombs, right? Which is that's the biggest spoiler in the whole show, I might say. But Vault-Tec drops the bomb. Like that's the.
I don't know that they did.
No, I think you do because that was a reveal about her father. And like, so that's what they talk about with Cooper's wife in the room. That's what he's like, we're going to do this.
I think what I read was an interview where they were talking to one of the creators, and he was saying like, no, China still dropped the first bomb, but Vault-Tec was ready to do it.
I mean, it's possible.
And that sounds like backpedaling to me.
Yeah, we don't know that. And now let's look for the second season. We'll find out. Maybe we'll find out some more background. One thing I wanted to bring up before I forgot and got past it, when we talk about good men and we talk about Maximus, number one, I actually think I like the actor who played him. I thought he did a good job. I do agree with what you said about him being this strong, confident, I know this, but then him not on some other aspects of it. But to be fair, and the one that you brought up about him and Lucy, hey, let's just have sex. Let's do this. And he doesn't know a lot about it. I think there is an aspect to that is realistic where he's just men or boys being naive to something like that and not really understanding it. Yet he does understand because he's grown up, in this world of Fallout, how people, when him and Lucy meet those people across the bridge and other different, situations he gets into. But when he first gets the armor, he takes out Titus, he puts on the armor. Do you remember the first situation that he happens upon where hold on.
It's the snake oil salesman who was
right. Some guy's trying to kill him, trying to kill the snake oil salesman, who I thought was great. That whole thing was fantastic. But he just comes upon him and he stops what's going on. He doesn't know who's in the right. He has no frame of reference for whether or not the guy who's choking the other guy is right to do it. No clue. And he stops him from doing it only to find out that the guy was fucking that guy's chickens. Like, that's when he's like, what? And that character, oh my God, the snake oils guy who comes up later on.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 times he shows up.
Yeah. It just, there's some really good things that happen. And regardless of the bad and the problems I have, the anti-men and how anti-capitalist it is and pushing this socialist, like straight communist agenda, I think is a problem. I'm actually in the course right now of reading Animal Farm because my daughter wanted to do a book club. Her and I will like read books and then discuss them. And I'm like, I got a book because a couple years ago she had to read 1984. And so her and I both read that. And this I'm like, here, same guy. We're going to read Animal Farm. So that's what I'm reading right now, which is kind of revolves around that. But yeah, the fact that Maximus walks up on that incident and he's kind of naive to it too. He has no idea what's going on, yet he just picks a side, you stop doing this because I said so. And then he's kind of taken aback by how that plays out.
Yeah.
But one of
He
the
hadn't
things we haven't,
considered that the guy being violent could be.
yeah, one of the things we haven't really talked about, we've made slight mention of it, is the Ghoul and Walter Goggins as Cooper, who
Walton. Did you say Walton?
No, I said Walter. Walton. My bad. I don't want to get it wrong because
lots of people got it wrong.
The best part of this show. And I like Lucy, but he absolutely, without question, carries it. He hucks that big satchel up on his back and carries this show. Him as the Ghoul is fantastic. It is played to a T exactly like I wanted him to be. He's smart, cunning, ruthless, exactly like I wanted that character to be. He absolutely crushes this.
I only had two problems. One, towards the end, he knows of a flaw with power armor, which they established in flashbacks where he's talking about being in the Marines and wearing it. He knew, he like even tells when he meets a guy who worked for that company, like, hey, there's a problem with one of these welds, and I lost the friends who were wearing this because of that problem. And then later on, he's like, hey, I wonder if they fixed that problem. Guess not. And he's able to take these guys out. But when he fights Maximus, Maximus has plot armor as well. So they just like fight to a standstill, however long, because it just never occurs to him to shoot Maximus in the right spot. So that's one issue.
Okay.
Second issue.
Fair.
Kim kept calling him Hancock. Because in Fallout 4, Hancock was our favorite character when me and Kim played through it. It's like, oh, Hancock. And I was like,
yeah, he was great.
Technically, no, but kind of, yeah.
No, yeah, that's absolutely great. And one character we haven't yet talked about is Lucy's brother, who I actually liked in this a lot. He is portrayed as like this younger brother, but I'm pretty sure the actor, I don't know what's going on with him, but he's older. Because
he's like
remember Nacho Libre?
Yeah.
Remember the kid who's like, why can't we just sometimes like have like a salad? He's that kid.
Him?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Right? No, I actually like him a lot in this. I think he's smart. He's not strong. He is not a strong masculine man, but that's okay. Not all men are meant to be that.
I don't know if he's that small, but he looks like he's about 3 feet tall.
He does. Absolutely. He looks.
It might be the angles, but he looks so small.
So young. They try to portray him as so young. I don't think he is that young in this. Like, he's an adult at this point. Nacho Libre was many years ago. He's an adult. He's over 18, I would guarantee it. Like, I assume you're looking it up. You have this look like you're looking it. But I liked him as a character. I thought he was smart. I thought he was resourceful. I thought he was clever. And I liked him in the vault, how, he's sitting in front of the council at one point. It was right after they fired Chet, and Chet goes off crying, and he gets, he goes and he ends up being with this blonde. It's a bunch of garbage and whatever. That he's just this weak guy who whatever. But this kid, he's sitting there, and he's every job that you've ever had, they marked you as lacks enthusiasm. Well, how do you feel about this? Or how do you feel about your last job? I lacked enthusiasm. Like, he just leaned into it, and I really enjoyed his character in this. Interesting how at the end of the show, so I'm looking forward to the next season, how his character, where it ended for him, and how that's going to go.
Yeah, Kim pointed out that when she first saw him, she was like, the kid from Hannah Montana. I've never seen him, but apparently
I haven't
he's
either.
Hannah Montana.
I would not have known that.
But he is 30, and he's
30. Did you say 30 years old?
30, and he's 5'1".
So what you're saying is he's older than Lucy, because Lucy's not a goddamn 30-year-old. Like, there's no way.
Lucy,
is he 30? No way.
All out.
That's insane.
Her eyes also show up as the thing that people are apparently searching for. Okay, Lucy is 2 years younger than him.
Okay, yeah, there you go. She's the older sister.
Yep.
So some of these other characters, the brother and oh man, did I write his name down? The other squire that's sent to Maximus when Titus dies, but he reports like he is Titus and said, "Oh yeah, my squire died," so they sent him a new one, who is the one who is kind of bullying him, instigating the bullying, and I really did enjoy their dynamic. I don't necessarily think they chose the best way to proceed with it in certain parts of it, like when the branding scene and things like that maybe he could have Maximus could have revealed himself a little earlier than that. It was just weird the way
I
they
think
did it.
that was a whole theme with Matt, going with these lies a little bit too.
Yeah,
Like,
but that.
if he had that would have been a good point. I mean, they're having a bro down
Mhm.
around this campfire, and he could have just been like, "Hey, I have to tell you, I didn't know how to tell the Brotherhood this. Titus actually died in this fight. I survived, and I took his power armor. I'm going to complete this mission. Are you with me?" As opposed to branding him with Titus's and then continuing on for however long.
And then, dude, it was so weird. And it was they'd already had this moment where, like, you're presented to him when the first introduction to Maximus is a dick because he's instigating Maximus getting the shit kicked out of him, which already excuse me, sets Maximus up as somebody who's tough and can, like, take a hit, he can take a beating, he's tough. But there's a scene where when, they ship in the squire and Maximus is talking to him about it in the guise of Titus, and he says, "Did you know him?" "Oh yeah, I knew." And he has this interaction with him where he talks about, well, back when I first joined the Brotherhood, I was the one who got the shit kicked out of me. And so when I saw Maximus, I was like, "Oh, let's kick the shit out of this guy." And it it made it more relatable as a character. And I really like the progression of where he went in the beginning to where he ended up being in the end of the show. What we saw, but one of the scenes, and I absolutely laughed out loud, almost peed myself when Maximus is making him climb that dead tree to find some apples.
Find an apple.
He just, I don't think it's any. I don't think it's an apple tree. And he just falls out of it, just straight. I was dying. There are some genuinely really good moments in this show. So,
and then, oh, dude, another good moment which happens to involve him. There's the jazz station, and people hate jazz so much that the guys have all these defense systems because they're trying to stop the station.
Played by he was in Portlandia. I can see him. I just can't name him. That actor. He's been in a lot.
Was it Fred Armisen?
Yes, Fred Armisen. I knew something. Fred Armisen. He's just a small bit part. Was really good. Yeah, there were some really good moments with that character. I liked him. Thaddeus. His name is Thaddeus. I liked Thaddeus a lot. I ended up really enjoying him and where they went with him. So it's when I bring up the things in this that I really didn't like, the male bashing and how men are terrible and that there was evil. All the men in this are evil. None of the women in it are evil, which is just unrealistic in a real world. And the fact that communism over capitalism, which is a driving message in this show, it's really sad that they choose to do that kind of thing because right now there is an audience for not that. There's an audience who is starved for Rambos and Commandos and a man who just acts like a goddamn man. Is he gruff and have rough edges? And yeah, probably. But guess what else he is? He's good. He does good things. He's not a dick to people. Or he's kind of a dick to people, but realistically, he makes the good choice because he knows what's the difference between right and wrong. We are starved for that right now, and I don't know why these studios they keep failing. They keep losing money on these things. They try and insert woke agendas into. When are they going to learn? When are they going to learn that, hey, give us what we want and you're going to earn billions, like literally billions of dollars just waiting to be thrown at you because we liked it.
Well, and this is a great opportunity too, because this is a show where they got it right 80% of the time. Like most of it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really didn't get a lot of the woke stuff. I don't think it's woke. I think somebody had something to do with casting and they said, okay, this person who does this, that should be a female. Or this should be a male character or whatever. Like, I think they tried to do a lot to turn certain characters who seemed good into villains, and they did it in a really ham-fisted way. It doesn't really make any sense. I mean, the fact that the way the end turns out, like who's really in the last vault and like why they're there and these exchanges are happening. It's so dumb because it's along the lines of like making vault tech super profitable by blowing up the world and stop making vaults and the company goes away and all the shareholders. It doesn't make any sense. None of that stuff makes any sense. And Moldaver, I still never understood her character because she is this like communist leader or appears to be.
Mhm.
She was saying what was her quote? Like communist is what they call.
Yeah, she tried. I don't remember the exact quote. I know what you're talking about when he meets her back in the flashback. They call me a communist, but I'm really not that. I just don't agree with what they're doing now.
I'm not a
Basically,
communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't in.
right.
Like somebody wrote that down or thought of that in the like somebody just thought in the shower like, oh, this is a good one. Write this down, but it doesn't make any sense.
Like just because you don't want a company to do evil things doesn't mean you're against capitalism.
Well, and she's not saying that she's against capitalism. She's against what the corporations are.
Yeah, and Vaultec is just portrayed as this just evil. They're just evil. Like
Yeah,
straight.
they're
That
just
is
a big.
exactly how
I mean,
they're portrayed.
yeah, like
Um,
that's what they are. And she says, "I'm not communist." Like they're not supposed to be communist leaning. I think, but that is like a popular thing. Like I have a former employee / good friend refers to herself as a communist. Like she goes to protests and waves communist flags and stuff like that. And it's like name a communist country that has been successful that isn't like a horrific dictatorship or hasn't perpetrated some atrocities against its own people. Like in theory, communism is good. The basic idea of give according to your ability, take according to that is good. The problem with communism, more so than capitalism, you take all the power and resources and concentrate that into fewer hands, and those hands do not have to be qualified. Like, there's no meritocracy, little in a lot of in most communists. I don't know of really any where I've heard that there's fierce competition from the most qualified people. Usually, it's stories of like how horrific managed everything is. Like there's not communist countries are not typically leading the world. China has done reasonably well because they're only sort of half-heartedly. They just have a government that wants to hold on to power no matter what. The communism, I mean, they in almost all aspects they operate as a capital.
Yeah, in order for communism to work, there has to be force
Mhm.
because there's no way to take from someone what they have created without force in some way or another. To say, this person who didn't do anything over here, they just sat on their ass, yet you farmed this or you created this. Well, we need to give it to them. Well, why should I give it to them? They didn't work for it. Well, we have to take it from you and give it to them because we say so. Like there's no part of that like that's where this morality comes in. And that's why I believe capitalism is better in so much as you get what you earn. Now, there's plenty of things that go on right now, and I think most of them have to do with, unfortunately, our government and what they're trying to do and the things that they do that divide us as people. I think by far, regardless of what side you're on, right, left, but that doesn't matter. I think rich, poor, there are more things in the world that we should be able to come together on than drive us apart. And yet we're being driven apart by things that don't really matter. They like this, the discussion you and I are having when we talk about, woke culture, that's garbage. That's just a garbage thing to get us talking about something that doesn't actually matter in society so that I can be on one side and you can be on the other and I can hate you and you can hate me. And we're so busy hating each other that we're not actually paying attention to what the people that are truly in power are actually doing. And
I've made almost that exact argument. Like most of this stuff is BS. Like the stuff that you see on CNN and Fox are enrage and inflame each side so they go after each other. Where it's like really almost regardless of who wins elections, not much.
So I think there's some moments in this show, and we've talked about it already, some things that happen that are really good. Like there's a moment between Lucy and the ghoul where they have what the ghoul refers to as an honest exchange. She tries to get away and like bites off his finger or something, and he just takes and chops her shit off. Just cuts off her finger. Here you go. Are you doing that? Crunch? Gone. And he refers to it as an honest exchange. And I think that was a turning point in their relationship. That whole scene from when he drops her off at that human trafficker or organ trafficker, and then she ends up getting out of it via when I watched the scene. So she's strapped down on the table. You have this robot that's coming in. I don't remember what those robots are called in the game.
Mr. Handy.
Mr. Handy. So it's coming in to harvest her organs. And what I saw a movie or a show version of a QuickTime event that I would have played in the game. You hit some buttons. He tries to do something. You have to hit the button in time. And you do a couple of those, and you get out. Right, exactly. Go here, and then you kick there, and she hits him with the pad. It was great. I really enjoy, as I said, some of the decisions they made in this are super well done. And that dynamic between Lucy and the ghoul, I am really, really, really looking forward to watching that in the second season. All I can hope for is that all this other stuff that we've talked about, mostly me, but the things that I didn't like, could you give me a male character who's not a complete piece of garbage? Could you give me one who is just like you think of the Minutemen, who, don't get me wrong, the head of the Minutemen in the game is one of the most insufferable characters in the entire game. It's terrible.
Here's my problem. So these are like end of shows, but Moldaver somehow is still alive. I don't know. I don't know if she was frozen. I don't know if she's turning into a ghoul. I have no idea how she's. None of that makes or how she's.
You just mean in the world. You mean she's still alive in the world, kind of like Lucy's father was still alive in the world?
Yeah, but he was frozen. We know that he was frozen. We know that he was frozen and thawed out and revived and sent off to do his thing.
I have to assume the same for her. We don't know that. You are correct. They don't ever talk about it. You have to assume the same.
But they tell us that his wife left him. And they suggest that Rose, his wife, was in a relationship with Moldaver. And they tell us that somehow he had the ability to nuke the capital of the NCR, specifically to kill her, just to kill his ex-wife. And that he is the reason for all these things happening. They tell us that. They don't show us anything. They don't show us Decline, him being a bad guy. They don't have any support for it. But we see Moldaver, who they're telling us Moldaver's the good guy. But they show Moldaver massacring innocent residents of a vault. They show us that she infiltrated this vault and did this on purpose. They show us her having him make the decision. 5 vault dwellers, his daughter, who's going to live, who's going to die, make this decision, see how much he loves his child and how he defended her when that massacre was going on. We see the fact that she inspires fear, raider, leader, or something that's well known in Philly. And then they show us that she's leading this force that's at this observatory and that she has kept Lucy's mom as a rotting feral ghoul, kept her alive and like chained up all these years. So they tell us he's the villain and they tell us what he's done without any proof and without any character traits reflect that. And then they tell us that she's the hero while showing all these horrific, atrocious things that she has done, like constantly just peppering in monstrous things.
All to get the MacGuffin. Like, and the MacGuffin's supposed to be the thing that's going to solve all the problems. And she, unless I'm mistaken, she talked about it in one of the flashbacks. That she referred to it then, like, oh, there's no way if you come up with the cold fusion, whatever.
Yeah, the whole thing that started the war in the lore of the games is its resources. They need oil, and it starts because the U.S. and North American countries, European countries, China, they're all starting to invade like parts of the Middle East and these different areas in the world, and then I think it's China annexes Alaska. And that's where Cooper is supposed to have fought because he talks about being in Alaska.
Yeah.
And they repel the Chinese and then the Chinese start bombing them and all this. That's generally how it's supposed to have gone. It's a resource. She's basically saying, like, I was part of this team that created basically an unlimited energy. But we weren't allowed to use it because the war was more profitable.
Yeah, but the thing I don't understand about that is if you're the company that has the thing that produces all the energy, how is that not the most profitable thing? Kind of like what you said with Vault-Tec.
And charge a bill for it.
Right. In your Vault-Tec, so instead of creating the war, how about you just don't create? You don't let the war happen so you can keep us on edge of war to keep promoting these vaults and keep making more of the vaults on the in case. But yeah, when she said there's no way I'm like, how is not that not the ultimate monetized thing? That you don't let people know how you did it. And, oh, you want power? You got to come to us. Period. Yeah. How is that not the ultimate thing? If you're the only country in the world where the oil can be gotten, you're the richest country in the world. Period. End of story. Stop. Close the book. That's it. It's done. So I thought that was one of those. And then in the end, she gets it. It gets delivered to her. Lucy brings it, finds out the big reveal about her dad and her mom and what really happened. And like you said, all the stuff that was shown with Moldaver, told to us about her father, regardless of what was already actually shown. And then she takes and plugs it in and flips the switch. And then you see off in the distance, all these buildings start lighting up. And I'm like, I'm sorry. What world are we living in? You're telling me all the cables that are connecting all that are still good. All the bulbs and all those buildings are still A-OK ready to go. Shut up. Come
and
on.
all the switches were in the on position.
Right, it's just ready to go. How does turning that on right there when now the Brotherhood has that? That's where the show ends. The Brotherhood now has unlimited power. And what they've shown us about the Brotherhood, they're just as bad as any other faction in this entire show.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to I almost want more exploration of the faction because they all think they're doing the right thing. The Enclave is like kind of representative of the old world and the leadership and trying to manipulate things, store it. The Institute wants to improve the world through science, but they really don't do anything. Like they just live in their own little bubble, kind of wait for the time to be right, same as the Vault Dwellers. You have the Minutemen, you have the NCR. There are so many different facts. You have Legion or whatever. Like there are so many facts throughout the history of those games.
Yep.
But they all think that they're doing the right thing, but they all want to like shepherd the world into a better age. But I feel like the Brotherhood wants to do good, but they want to do it by like controlling what's out there. They want to like make sure that they're ahead of the game. Like I feel like the Brotherhood having it is not the worst thing in the world. I'm kind of curious where they go with it because the Brotherhood is so bad.
Yeah, I just really didn't like that because in the games that I played, I never felt that way about the Brotherhood. I never felt I felt like they were generally almost like the Minutemen. They're out there to do good. They're not being sent on missions to do bad, to do evil things. Nor are you dealing with other Brotherhood members who are, like Titus, going around doing horrible things just to do them.
Yeah, it's like the Institute's like, we're going to save the world through science and technology, and the Brotherhood's like, science and technology got us in. We are going to help determine what is safe and try to protect.
Yeah, I do think that there is value in this show. There are things that if they can lean away, if they can actually see what I believe is the writing on the walls, and they can hopefully kind of steer a little bit away from the woke side of things and just continue to give us good characters. Overall, I like Maximus. I like Thaddeus. I like Lucy. I like the Ghoul. I didn't really like either Moldaver or her father. I don't even remember what his name was. Henry. But other than that, I thought it was pretty okay. And I am looking forward to where this is going to go. There's plenty of things about this that I could talk to that I had, or talk about that I had problems with. But overall, I do think there's a lot of good to be had here. I think some of the people that made it actually really appreciated the source material, and that comes out in the show. And there's just some really good things that happen, and unfortunately they are clouded, especially when I rewatched it and I watched it with this critical eye. And I mean, I'm not going to get into the 14 pages of notes total that I wrote. There's too many. But there's certain things that happened in this that could be talked about, that could be picked at if I really wanted to. And Hooligans, feel free, comment on this. Send us an email at moviehowl@gmail.com. I would love to have that discussion with you if anybody is interested in it. But at the end of the day, I think there's something worthwhile here. Unlike a lot of the shows that are being pushed right now, like Star Wars is done with the things that have come out recently with the Acolyte. But I've been off the Star Wars bandwagon, and I loved Star Wars growing up. My dad loved Star Wars. I love Star Wars. But just what's happened to the newest of the movies and everything is nope. I am completely checked out. Don't care at all. The Lord of the Rings stuff that's happened. They made Lord of the Rings movies, which were epic and some of the best things that have ever been put to film. And then The Hobbit, which meh. And then any of the Rings of Power. It's been terrible. Everything after that's been terrible. And movie studios are learning. Production studios are learning that this and their corporations, they need to make money. It is not going to work for them if they keep doing this thing and it doesn't make any money. So I do hope they can learn. Like all the Marvel things, all of that made money because they didn't go woke, go broke. When they started doing that, everybody has since checked out of Marvel. Nobody cares. All the things that have come out recently, nobody gives two craps about at all, not even a little bit. So I am excited to see where this goes. I really appreciated a lot of the things they did in this show. Some genuine, very, very, very good elements in it. The world of Fallout is outstanding. The world that they built feels real, feels lived in, just like the game world when you play in it. Super well done. They got some tweaking they need to do, and I honestly, I really, really hope they can do it.
Yeah, I will just end by agreeing with pretty much everything you said, but what really gave me hope was how good a lot of the world built, but also the way that Lucy, when they have that exchange and she comes out of that shopping center thing where they're like harvesting organs,
Mm-hmm.
she goes to the ghoul and she's like, "You don't get this, you turn into one of those. Here you go." Drops them all in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Golden rule, motherfucker. Just
Yep.
walks away. It's like
Yeah,
was
that, as I
perfect.
said, that was a turning point in their relationship. This is the most honest exchange we've had yet. And from that, him dropping her off to her giving him that at the end, that whole thing is a turning point for them as characters, as two characters. And I'm really interested to see where that goes. There were plenty of, as I said, plenty of other things that I could be talking about with this. I got a lot of other things written down. There's a lot to this. And you know, when I first watched it, I didn't have that critical eye. I just sat back and enjoyed it up until basically the last episode. The last episode is where they really they jumped the shark as far as the message is concerned. But otherwise, this is when I said I disagree with the drinker on this. I mean, I don't know that he didn't see it this way, but the weak man, the pro-communism, socialist stuff, that they really turned me off. But the show itself is so good that as long as they don't lean more into that side of it, I will enjoy the next season of Fallout and whatever's to come after that. I am looking forward to it.
Yep, I am too. And that's, I think, all we've got, right?
That's not all I've got, but that's all I'm going to give.
That's all we're going to do for now.
I've actually got so much more. But yeah, that's all I'm going to give. Halligans, this was great. We are enjoying this new format. We'd like to join you here on YouTube, give our opinions on things. And if you have an idea of something you want us to talk about, a movie, maybe a game, a show, whatever, hit us up. Let us know. Hit us up in the comments here. Send us something at moviehowl@gmail.com. Let us know what you feel. And, you know, we'll try and get, if you give us something, we'll try and get to it. Just straight up. There's plenty to get to. There's so many things we could possibly talk about. I'm dying to talk about all of it. Just let us know what you want us to talk about. We'll do it. All right. Well, Halligans, you know what? We have to end on the same thing we end on every time. Ryan, Fallout on Prime. Watch or not a watch?
Watch.
I agree. I think it's a watch as well, even with all the problems. It was worth my time. So everybody, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We enjoy doing this. It's fun. It's a good time. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. Until next time, that's been Ryan. I've been Joe. We're out.